Alright, let's dive into some NHL hot takes, but with a twist because today, I'm not just here to report. I'm here to debate, analyze, and maybe even stir the pot a little. So, buckle up because we're starting with a topic that's got everyone talking. The Montreal Canadiens cap situation. Now, the conventional wisdom is that the Canadiens are sitting pretty, right? They've got their young stars locked up on team-friendly deals, and their cap sheet looks cleaner than a freshly Zambonied rink. But here's the thing, personally, I think there's a flip side to this coin that not enough people are talking about. What makes this really interesting is the human element. Sure, these players are getting paid millions, but they're also constantly hearing how they left money on the table. In my opinion, that's got to wear on you. I mean, imagine being Nick Suzuki or Caufield and seeing your name on every best contract list. On the surface, it's a compliment, but what it really means is you're underpaid. And while these guys aren't exactly struggling to pay rent, it's human nature to want to be compensated fairly. What many people don't realize is that this could create resentment down the line, especially if the team doesn't win. Winning cures a lot, but if the Canadiens stumble, those contract conversations could become a lot louder. From my perspective, this raises a deeper question. How sustainable is this model? The Canadiens have cap space to burn, but what are they going to do with it? Overpay for depth players? That's a recipe for mediocrity. Sign a big-name free agent? Great, but how does that sit with the homegrown stars who took discounts? If you take a step back and think about it, the Canadiens are walking a tightrope here. They've got a short window to win before some of these players start demanding their fair share. A detail I find fascinating is how this could shift the power dynamics in the locker room. What this really suggests is that the Canadiens' cap situation isn't just a financial win, it's a ticking clock. Now let's pivot to the Ron Francis trade. It's often labeled one of the worst in NHL history, but here's where I'm going to play devil's advocate. What makes this trade so interesting is how hindsight has completely rewritten its legacy. At the time, it made sense for the Whalers. John Cullen was the younger, high-scoring center, and Francis was a solid but not elite player. The trade only looks lopsided because Cullen's career was cut short by injuries, while Francis went on to become a legend. In my opinion, this isn't a case of a bad trade. It's a case of bad luck. What many people don't realize is that trades are often judged by outcomes, not intentions. If Cullen had stayed healthy, this trade wouldn't be on any worst of lists. From my perspective, this highlights a bigger trend in sports media. We love to judge decisions based on results, not process. If you take a step back and think about it, this trade is a perfect example of how unpredictable the NHL can be. A detail I find fascinating is how Francis's longevity skewed the narrative. What this really suggests is that sometimes, a bad trade is just a trade that didn't go as planned. Next up, the puck over glass penalty. Now, I know this rule drives a lot of fans crazy, but personally I think it's underrated. What makes this really interesting is how it's become a lightning rod for debate. Critics say it's inconsistent, and they're not wrong. Why is shooting the puck over the glass a penalty but icing isn't? But here's where I'm going to defend it. This rule isn't about fairness, it's about pacing. In my opinion, the NHL is smarter than we give it credit for. What many people don't realize is that these stoppages give fans, especially older ones, a chance to, well, take a break. If you take a step back and think about it, this rule is a win for anyone who's ever needed a bathroom break during a game. A detail I find fascinating is how much this rule annoys younger fans, who just want non-stop action. What this really suggests is that the NHL is balancing entertainment with practicality. Finally, let's talk about Dylan Larkin and the Red Wings. The narrative is that Larkin quit on the team, but personally, I think that's a massive oversimplification. What makes this really interesting is Larkin's honesty. He looked at the Red Wings roster and saw what everyone else should see. They're not built to win. In my opinion, Larkin's quitting is actually a moment of clarity. What many people don't realize is that the NHL is a center-driven league, and the Red Wings don't have an elite one. From my perspective, Larkin's realism is refreshing. If you take a step back and think about it, he's not quitting, he's acknowledging reality. A detail I find fascinating is how fans often confuse loyalty with delusion. What this really suggests is that sometimes the hardest thing to do is admit when it's time to move on. So there you have it for NHL topics for contrarian takes. What's the takeaway? In my opinion, it's that nothing in sports is as simple as it seems. Whether it's cap management, trades, rules, or player decisions, there's always a deeper story. Personally, I think that's what makes this game so fascinating. What do you think? Let me know in the comments and maybe we'll tackle your hot take next time. Until then, keep questioning, keep debating, and keep loving this crazy game.